Welcome everyone to Disruptive Conversations. So happy to be here with you today. And today is going to be about finance and more than finance. We're going to go beyond the numbers. Numbers are important, don't get me wrong, but we're going to get beyond the numbers to see what else is important for us to know about finance and how we go about bringing it into our lives and into our thinking in a way that really does serve us. And today my guest is Farnoosh Torabi. I'm so thrilled to have her on. It is a special opportunity for us to spend time with her and to really be able to learn about the wisdom of all that she has done. So thrilled to be here with you and to have her on. So we're just waiting for Farnoosh to come on. And for any of you who are joining for the first time, welcome. Dr. Risa Reiger, clinical psychologist, and I'm an expert in change. And we talk about and really get there about what you need to do to create positive change in your life. And that's what it's all about. Because whether or not we're feeling it or we're not feeling it, change is happening all around us. And so what does that mean for us to either resist change or to be able to embrace the positive change that we do want to bring into our lives? So waiting for Farnoosh to come on. And so if there's anyone that you know who should be coming on, needs to hear this today, by all means, take the moment and reach out to them. And we're going to be starting very shortly. If you haven't started following me yet, I would invite you to do so. Here, Farnoosh has joined and has requested, so we are going to be right. I'm so excited for that. And Farnoosh and I have a great story to tell about how we've met. And here she is without further ado. So Farnoosh, I know we've got a lot that we're going to be doing today. So first I'm going to introduce the show, introduce me and you, and then we're going to jump right into a conversation because we've got a lot to talk about. Don't want to miss a moment of time with you.
Thank you.
Welcome. Oh, pleasure. So great to see you. Welcome everyone to Disruptive Conversations with thought leaders, entrepreneurs, influencers, educators, authors, financial specialists, in which we deep dive into the experiences these women have needed to navigate and conquer in order to achieve their personal and professional success. I'm Dr. Risa Reiger, clinical psychologist, and I am an expert in change. I help people, companies, teams make positive change at any point in time. And that's the good news. The good news is that we are built for change, and positive change can happen at any point. But in order to make positive change, you need to disrupt. You need to disrupt a thought, a feeling, a belief, an action, a behavior, a habit in order to create your 10.0 life. And that's what this series of conversations is all about. And today it is my enormous pleasure to welcome Farnoosh Torabi. I have her bio here. Wait till you hear this. She is one of America's leading personal finance experts, and that is the truth. She is the host of the award-winning podcast, So Money. I have had the honor of being her guest on it, and we'll tell you a little backstory on that. And she has earned over 30 million downloads. Yes, I said 30 million. She is a sought-after speaker, author of multiple books, and her newest book is A Healthy State of Panic. And it's the most unusual, it's really a very unique perspective on how to use what we have on our insides to help us make decisions on the outsides and financial decisions. And Farnoosh has been featured in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, and Time Magazine. If you can think of a place, Farnoosh has been there, or it's on her book tour or her next step to be going there. So without further moment of hesitation, Farnoosh, how are you? So great to see
Hey,
you.
I'm great. I love that it's 70 degrees today in New Jersey. I know you're in New York, but probably the same. It's good. When the weather's good, it's hard to be upset.
Yeah, it takes much more effort
Yes.
to kind of break
And
through
being
that.
with you, of course, it's
Oh,
icing.
fantastic. So, Farnoosh, what haven't I said in your
Oh,
bio that you would like to share with
I think
us?
you forgot to tell everybody that I'm a terrified woman, and that I love fear, and that I want to rebrand fear as a potentially helpful tool in our lives as we navigate high stakes decisions regarding our money, our relationships, our careers, our health. I wrote this book because I felt like it needed to be said. I People ask me all the time, like, how did you become you, and how did you make these decisions? You seem so confident. It's like, well, the truth of it is, I'm scared a lot of the times. I have a intimate relationship with fear that predates my career and predates um, even becoming a financial expert. It's more that I was raised the daughter of immigrants who came here very ambitious, but also very practical and very cautious of this new world called America and their place in it. And growing up in uh, in their orbit, I inherited a lot of those fears. Some good, some bad, but I think I always say, like, I've had a long history with fear, and then you add to that my profession, which is talking about money, working with people and their money. And money is scary. And the emotional underpinning is always fear. And yet, I think we're still capable of making really great choices in our financial lives, not because we're fearless, but maybe because we're actually paying attention to what we're afraid of. Because what I always say is that what you're afraid of can mean that you care about something. There is something that you don't want to lose, you don't want to risk. And there's a story there, there is meaning there. So to unpack that is actually a really worthwhile exercise.
And to add to that, because what you're saying is so crucially important, that fear, this may sound a little redundant, but I am a psychologist, but fear is not to be feared.
Correct.
So
Right.
that you don't have to, because there are two pieces. One is feeling afraid, right? And the other is feeling afraid about feeling afraid.
Right.
And so that what I'm hearing from you, and I'm sure you can speak more on that, is that when we have fear, and fear is very
Mm-hmm.
important. Fear isn't our enemy. Fear can be what helps keep us alive. It can alert us to different kinds of dangers. And it's really being able to learn how to read our fear. So how is it that you leveraged fear for your good
Well,
and for
fear,
all the people who come to you and
yeah.
hear you?
You know, I've there's so many books on how to be fearless, and the importance of fearlessness. And I just feel like the way that fearlessness works is that it doesn't. Because I don't know. I feel like you said it, fear is valid. And we have so long been, I think, told to discount fear, to see fear as the enemy, as a negative, as a weakness. If you feel fear, people don't even want to admit when they're afraid. They don't want to, let alone unpack it and look at it. They don't even want to like acknowledge it because they think that that means something is um, lacking in their lives, that they're not capable, they're not confident. I think that it's like, show me someone who's fearless, and I'll show you someone who actually doesn't know who they are, what they value, what they want to protect. If you're not afraid, sometimes I'm worried for you, because they're like, it's like, what a privilege to be able to walk through life and be completely fearless of what could be on the other side of a big decision, because you're so confident that whatever's on the other side is going to work out and you'll be happy with that. Now, there's a lot of uncertainty in this world. We can't control everything. This is not what this book is about. It's not about how to follow your fears and everything's going to work out. It's about how to follow your fears so that you can become more aligned with what it is that you want to honor, value, protect in your life as you're about to enter uncertainty, as you're about to enter the unknown, something that could potentially not work out. Um, and so you can still do that, get on the other side of it, and still feel like, okay, well, I did everything I could, you know, and I think we can take fear into so many of these, we can walk into so many things with fear, whether it's like managing our money, managing our careers. You asked me, how did I use fear in my own life? I think for me, every time fear shows up, it is, and in the book, I talk about different types of fears. So there's like the fear of rejection, the fear of loneliness. Knowing which fear you're actually feeling is step one, because then you can kind of know a little bit more about what to do with it and what it's trying to tell you, and maybe with the wisdom in it. And the book walks you through some of those examples. But I've experienced a lot of fear of rejection and loneliness in my life, and what it has forced me to do, because I don't want to live in that feeling. I don't want to be buried in that emotion. I want to be able to use the fear as a catalyst to go do something that's going to make me feel better, that's going to make me feel more. If it's rejection, feel more accepted. If it's loneliness, feel more not lonely. And but to do it also in a way that is healthy, that is constructive, that is not a short term but a long term sustainable solution to this fear that you're experiencing. So gosh, where do I even begin? I mean, I was afraid of um, you know, in my adult years, a lot of it was failure. And I think what I realized is that sometimes when you fear failure, what it's really pointing at is that your definition of success is fraught. And you may very well fail at this endeavor, but it has nothing to say, it's nothing about you, it's about what you have set yourself up to do. You know, like sometimes we set ourselves up for failure because we don't actually want what we think we want. It's not really who we are. Like I thought that success for me was going to be being the next anchor on television, you know, on CNBC. And I worked hard towards that goal. I worked in television. I was a producer. I did all the things. I got all the resume, all the LinkedIn, requirements. But there was a part of me that always felt like I'm never going to get this. I'm never going to be successful. And I think what I ultimately realized is that I don't really want it that bad. And I'm trying to go after this thing because it sort of looks like it would be a great experience and other people have had success with it. My mother would be proud of me. It would feel very cool for a while, but is that really what I want to do? And I remember I got this job, I got very close to this goal, and I was able to become a fill-in anchor at CBS. And it was a short-term stint, and at the end of it they offered me a full-time job, and I said no thank you, because I realized like this isn't what I want to actually do. I don't, and it's nothing against the profession. It's just that for me, it was like I got pretty close to it, and I was like, no, this is not actually what I want. And I pivoted a little bit. But when you feel fear, there are a few things you can do. And here's here's the checklist. And regardless of whatever the fear may be, but sometimes fear is saying to you, hey, maybe there is a gap of knowledge. You're afraid because you don't know enough. And so the good, healthy move is to go fill that knowledge gap and get more educated. It could mean asking a few extra questions. It could mean reading a book. It could mean just opening up your world a little bit more, talking to a friend, so this is the stuff that is healthy. That fear can be the light bulb moment to go, okay, I got to go do this. And then education breeds confidence, right? Education eliminates that fear. The other thing you can try to do is when you feel fear, to recognize where it's actually coming from. How did you acquire this fear? Sometimes fear latches onto us from from the external world, whether that's family, it's the media, it's your just, you know, the narrative that you grew up with, that you think like, I have to do life in this way, and if I'm not, I'm not being successful, I'm not, and that's scary. I think that knowing the narrative of your fear is a worthwhile exercise to trace the root of that fear, because what it does is sometimes you realize I have a lot to be appreciative of. Like, this fear got me quite far. Like, I find that when people are afraid of losing all their money, um, and it's always people who are like established, like they have savings, they have a job, they're not living paycheck to paycheck. Actually, they're people who do have assets, but yet they have this nagging fear of losing it all. And I go, okay, well, tell me about how you learned about money growing up. What was your money life as a kid? And they'll almost always tell me a story about scarcity, about financial fragility growing up, mom or dad, you know, fighting about money, dad losing his job, mom losing her job. So there is this really unignorable story that has kind of shaped their relationship with money, and subconsciously or consciously, and now as an adult, they're holding on to this fear when there's really no evidence anymore that this could happen to them. This is a childhood fear that has endured, and in some regards that fear is maybe what got them to a place of security, you know, that I don't want to repeat what I grew up with. I'm going to go and make money, I'm going to save, and I'm going to pay off my debt, and the fear doesn't go away. So when we trace the root of it, we're like, okay, I see where this is coming from, I see where this has maybe helped me, but it's no longer serving me. I'm an adult, right? I have agency, so I'm going to kiss it goodbye, and in replace of this fear, I'm going to build a new narrative around money. What, you know, something else to sort of obsess over, as opposed to this fear. Could it be that, you know, a new goal, a new thing to go after? And so I think that especially with money, it's so often our relationship with money is so rooted in who we were as kids, who was influencing us. So the adult thing to do now is to like investigate that and recognize that you have permission to not be fearful here.
That you can give yourself that agency. But what's important that I want to really highlight about what you're saying, and this was just such a beautiful and important explanation that is so accessible to people, that one is to really step into your fear, not in terms of becoming paralyzed by it, but in terms of understanding, just like one size doesn't fit all,
Right.
right? That fear isn't one entity, and fear isn't all bad, and fear isn't something to just stop you and paralyze you. And so it's important, and you're talking about like to step into, not necessarily feeling fearful, but thinking about it,
Right.
and taking and building awareness about your own
Mm-hmm.
fearfulness and what it means, and parsing out exactly as you're saying, which is how has it been of service to me,
Right.
right? And you know, and and how has it not? And so we have this wonderful opportunity to either, you know, we can step on the accelerator and step on the brake. And there are times that we need to do different actions. You know, you're not going to
Mm-hmm.
come to a stop sign, hopefully, and like pedal to the metal,
Right.
you know. And
Which, yeah, I think, look, you
and for
might, in your exploration of fear, you might realize, like, I'm not doing that thing. I'm not doing it. And that's valid. But we owe it to ourselves and our feelings, and who, you know, to kind of like look at least how we're feeling. And we live in a culture that is so obsessed with happiness and positivity that this pivot to actually recognizing these quote unquote bad feelings as valid is, it requires a lot of reinforcing, because this is not something that we have been conditioned to trust or believe. So my book is about fear, but in the run up to writing my book, I saw other books that were a bit counterculture to what we've been reading in the sort of pop science and therapy and self-help shelves about happiness and, positivity, where I would read titles called like The Upside of Stress. Did you know that stress can sometimes be a good thing? I read that because I've had stress in my life. There's another book I liked called The
And
Power of Regret. The
mhm.
Power of Regret. In a world where we always say, I want no regrets. Or I have no regrets, as if like that we wear that with a badge of honor, like I don't regret. Sometimes, regret's fine, and you can learn from regret. The key is, again, that you don't ignore, because when you say like no regrets, it's like, well, did you even see what happened? Did you even like reflect on the outcome here? And because we're so scared, again, to admit that something may have not worked out the way that we had hoped, it feels disappointing. So this book does require like to go to the dark place sometimes and do the harder work of getting to know yourself better. There was a study that came out in 2023. It was uh, a study that was done by a number of academic institutes. The New York Times first reported on it, essentially found that, and you know this through your work, that people who are more kind of, okay, so they took the negative emotions like fear, anger, and sadness. And they ask people, when you hear these words, when you experience these feelings, how do you feel? Like, what does it trigger in you? And the cohort that were very anti sadness, fear, regret, that like did not have good association with these words, were quote unquote less happy. And then those over here who were like, yeah, these words, they're not my favorite words. So they sort of had like either a neutral reaction or in some cases a positive reaction. Like, oh, I can see the gifts in these experiences. Like this is called living your life. Like when you are grieving or when you're fearful, like that's life, and sometimes that's what you have to go through. Those people were happier. And I think that just ultimately says that when you're more in tune and respectful of all of your feelings, and you don't dismiss a part of yourself, well, you are more in alignment with who you are, and that breeds more contentment in your life. So yeah, to your very first statement, fear is nothing to be afraid of.
Yes.
And I, to quote Kelly Ripa, who wrote the cover quote for the book, like, this is the rebrand that fear has really needed. Because again, someone who says, I don't have any fears, I'm fearless, I don't know about that person.
Well, Well, two things. First of all, one of the reasons why I'm smiling, just to let you know, while you're talking about this, is that I was in the process of going through an edit of chapter 1 of my book. And there's an harmonic, when you have a string instrument, you hit one string and then there are other strings that just vibrate along with it. And so what you were talking about was such a harmonic for me and what I'm writing about. It's just wonderful. And there's something that also I want to pull out from what you're saying and really highlight it, which is that when we're saying no, actually two things. I didn't tell the total truth. So one is that when we're in avoidance, we're really messaging ourselves that I just can't deal with this.
Right.
I can't deal with this. And the other thing is that one of the places where we see fearlessness and then we become fearful is when we think about the teenagers and the teenage brain.
Right.
And, there was a study done, which was about, here, play Russian roulette. Like there's a gun that's got like one bullet in it. And if you're willing to do it, you've got 6 chances, 5 of which are fine, one isn't, you'll get $1,000,000. And for a lot of teenagers, it's like, this sounds great, right? Because oftentimes the teenage brain does not have that, because our prefrontal cortex isn't yet online enough to say, yeah, that may sound really great, but this isn't such a great thing. So that the fearfulness that becomes paralyzing, and fearlessness that becomes
Right.
dangerous. In between those is a whole lot of bandwidth to be able to, as you've been talking about, leverage it and learn from it. If and it takes courage to do that. So I also want to highlight your courageousness to take that journey in you, and then also to write about it and be clear about it and be vulnerable and very transparent for others.
Thanks.
And that is just such a courageous space and such a tremendous space of service for people who are reading your book. Not if they're reading it about the money part, that's great, but they get such a bonus because of all of what you bring to you. When I was doing your video, I was saying, well, here's Farnoosh, and she knows all about money, but she isn't just about, kind of that little graph of the dollars going up and down, that there's so much more that you bring to it. So there's the money and the knowledge, and also the wisdom and the understanding. And I love how you meld money and humanity and being in your own humanness.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that. I want to copy paste that and put it in the updated paperback.
It would be my, that's a quote that would be my honor
Thank you.
to,
Thank you.
for you to have, because that's really, that's what I think and believe. I think also, just to change, change the channel just a tiny little bit. I know you want to be on TV. I don't want to change your channel, but to change ours,
Yes. Yeah.
a bit, is that we met under very incredible, I think so, circumstances. And so, and this is a place where maybe being a little bit more fearless, or really gauging what is your risk?
Mm-hmm.
What So you were posting, you can take over the story anytime you want, but you were posting, and I just said, oh my gosh, this woman is really full of such extraordinary information, great sense of humor. How great is that, right? Information, sense of humor, has a good sense of herself, can kind of poke a little bit of, I can't believe what I did. I'm the same way in that. And so I thought, I'm just going to DM her. I'm
Yeah.
just going to DM her. And I did. And we started a little conversation going. I don't have to call it a little, I don't have to diminutive it. Stop that. Go back. Okay. We started a conversation, a DM conversation. And then I said, well, what do I have? The worst that'll happen is a no, and I'll be able to withstand that. So I would love to be your guest on your podcast. And you responded.
Yes. Yes. Um, I love that story. I think it's a testament to just taking a leap of faith. And these days, everybody is so accessible because of our our, our connections online, and everyone's just trying to do their thing. And everyone's a human being, and everybody appreciates authentic connections. And I think people shy from that too often because they're afraid of rejection. Um, but, you know, as I say in the book, sometimes you have to hold two fears in balance. You have a fear of rejection in that moment of, oh my gosh, what if Farnoosh doesn't says no? But then there might be a bigger fear of like, if I don't do this, if I allow this fear to stop me, what's the consequence on the other side? That could be a more fearful reality. And it could be like, I'll never get to know this person, even if I'm not on her show. Like, maybe there's something else like we can work together on. Or if I don't get on her show, I mean, it's not the end of the world and nothing to be afraid of, but it's just sometimes like when we get so in our heads about what's fearful, and taking a step away and being like, well, what's the big deal? Like, what is really at stake? Nothing, you know? So I'm glad you did that. And I encourage everybody to do that. I always, even my audience on the show, on the podcast, in, anywhere that I'm just like, DM me on Instagram. I'm usually uh, a text away.
That's That's so great. So I can't believe, and I knew this would happen. Knew this would happen. That the time goes so quickly. There's
Yeah.
so much more to say. Our
Show your
conversation, I look
book.
forward.
I don't have a copy of it with me here, which is crazy.
Oh,
That's,
that's
yeah.
okay because because you know what? In this
I have
sisterhood, I
framed it.
in this sisterhood, I've got you covered. I've got you. So here's Farnoosh's book, A Healthy State of Panic. And panic can help you, rather than to be paralyzed, it can help you to mobilize.
I
Do you like that one?
like that, from paralysis
Paralyzed,
to
paralyzed,
mobility. Yeah.
mobilize. Use that one too if that works for you. Okay. So last question for you. What's your next disruption?
Oh my gosh. Well, it's going to be a year of disruption. It's already been a year of disruption. I think I was just doing a video on this like quiet recession that a lot of us feel like we're in. We're not really in a recession, but people do feel um, very stuck in their financial lives, in their careers, in their entrepreneurial endeavors. And so I think um, the healthy move, and I've been taking a page out of my own book, when you're afraid of like, it seems like the way you were making money last year may not be the way that you're making money this year. And that's how professions evolve. Like, okay, thank that, like that idea that like led you for many years making money out of that idea. What's your new idea? What's the new way that you're going to show up? A lot of us are, not me, because I never gave it a chance, but TikTok, I don't think it's going away, but it could, change. And I think that's threatening a lot of creators. So what are you going to do? You're just going to like cry about it on Capitol Hill? Okay, but also like, what are you going to do? So you got to make new things. You got to find another way to show up for your audience that is sustainable. So I'm doing a little bit of that in my own orbit, my own world, where I've opened a membership for people who want to get more access to me and my advice and have a community around financial literacy. So that started in January. It's called the So Money Members Club. I'm really excited about that, and just doing more direct to audience
Mm-hmm.
work, as opposed to what a lot of my work has been in the past, which is working in consulting with brands, with companies where they had marketing dollars. And I hope that comes back. But right now, it seems like everyone's hitting pause on that. So in the meantime, I'm showing up, and I think that it's actually been a gift, to be honest, because I've wanted to do this for a while. The circumstances of the economy have made it clear that now is the time. Got to get this going. And I did, and it's been really rewarding and validating. And I think in the future, it may be like, I won't even, this will be it. This is like what I'm going to do full time. So I'm excited.
So, Farnoosh, I cannot find enough words to thank you enough for coming on, for sharing your, both your, your tremendous thinking and thoughtfulness and heartfulness. And thank you so much. I know that the audience will have a lot of important information to take away from them and to think about and feeling away from here as well. And so for anyone who may not have been able to listen in, you'll be able to find this, you'll be able to find this on Instagram Live. Farnoosh is a collaborator, and so contributor, and so it'll be on her site as well. And thank you again. We need to take a moment for our glam shot.
Okay.
For the cover. And so I'm going to do a little hair flip here. If you want to, by all means, this is our moment to do that. I have something like, you ever have a hair that's just like, I got it. Hair that's just stuck. And so Farnoosh, thank you so very
Yeah.
much. You ready? Okay. one more.
Okay, we'll do head tilt.
Thank you so much
Thank
for coming
you.
on, everyone. See you next week. And remember, positive change can happen at any point in time. And I've saved a seat for you. See you then.